On this episode of the show, I have with me Bryan Mahoney. He is co-founder and CEO at Cord Commerce, and we're going to be talking about his move from the CTO to the CEO role. And we're going to be really talking about what that means. Moving from VP of engineering to CTO is one step, CTO to CEO is another, and we're going to talk about what he needed to do to upskill and make those moves. And he mentioned to invest in what you know and invest in other areas. And he actually open sourced Glossier's career ladder when he was there, and we'll hopefully unpack all that with him. So, Bryan, thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Before we dive in, could you tell everyone what Cord Commerce does?
Yeah, we're constantly working on a better way to describe exactly what it is we do. The current version that I'm going with is Cord is a commerce data platform that is purpose built for AI commerce. What does that mean? We built a platform that automatically models all of a brand's customer, order, and marketing data, and then gives them an activation layer that they can use themselves or expose to agents to drive real outcomes.
Okay. I mean, we could probably unpack that, and that'd make for an interesting one as well. So, this episode, we are going to talk about a bit of your career journey. Obviously, you've held CTO roles, engineering leadership roles. You are now the CEO and co-founder. I guess just when you think about your journey, and obviously you've had fantastic companies you've worked for. Did you at any point decide, through those leadership roles, you're like, I actually want to run the entire business? Was that something that at any point was a goal?
Not something that I set out to do necessarily. Although, I've been an entrepreneur since I was really young, and so I started a company when I was still in university, a company that I ran as effectively the CEO for nearly 20 years. But it was sort of the same thing. It was saw an opportunity, was really interested in building and being really hands-on and working with customers on the other end and helping them get closer to their customers. And so I didn't wake up one day and decide that I wanted to be a CEO. I saw opportunities and jobs to be done and tried to lean into where my strengths were. I really didn't figure out what it meant to be the CEO of a venture-backed or an investment-backed company until kind of recently. And so I like to say that Cord accidentally became a SaaS platform, and in so doing, I accidentally became a SaaS CEO.
There you go. Good accents are always make
Happy
good
accident.
stories. Happy
Yeah.
accents. I guess when you look at that and a startup experience, in this case, Cord Commerce has evolved to SaaS platform, something maybe you hadn't anticipated. Making the journey from other experiences you've had, I guess as you kind of look back on your career and look at that trajectory, is being the CEO a different skill set than you had been accumulating? Was it basically just leveraging what you knew? How was your experience in terms of actually the job itself?
A good question. Yeah, I'm the CEO of what is effectively a very technical product, and so I think that the transition for me to go from chief technology officer at a venture-backed startup or two venture-backed startups to ultimately being a CEO was pretty straightforward. I would say because like so much of what I do is deeply technical. I still spend an awful lot of time thinking about the technical team that we have on the field and how we can recruit the very best and retain the very best. So on the one hand, that's quite similar to the job that I was doing for the last decade as a CTO. And to the 20 years before that as effectively a fractional CTO for a lot of the brands that had chosen to work with the agency that we had created. The things that I didn't know and have had to learn kind of on the job is that everything that is involved with being the CEO that extends beyond the technology side of the organization. So go to market as an example. I said we accidentally became a SaaS platform. Well, selling software, as it turns out, is a unique skill, and how you think about go to market and how you identify your ICP and get closer to them. Those were sort of things that I had never done before. I always sold services, services in terms of hours or agency services that were more consultative. But having a product and how to sell it and how to package it was something that I was doing for the first time. So that was net new. And then the other areas of the business, you're really sort of operating outside of just the technology side of things. So that was quite new for me. And then investor relations. So I think if you've been a part of an executive leadership team at any venture-backed business, you are naturally going to interface with investors that are your current investors, or maybe folks that are looking to be a part of that next round. So I was always second, third, or fourth chair in those opportunities, and had an opportunity, like, very fortunate to have had an opportunity to work alongside of people who are really good at investor relations and fundraising. And so I feel like I've kind of learned from some of the best, but having an opportunity to do it myself for the first time, and then the second time, and then the third time is a lesson that I continue to learn. And so how do we make sure that we not only have the right team in place at Cord to build the right product and to deliver it to those customers, but that I have the right team at the board level. And I just don't think that there's a business book that you can read about that, or a podcast that's going to tell you exactly how to do it and you're just going to get it right. Like, you've got to find your own way. That's been an incredible part of my journey, something that I've really enjoyed doing, and will continue to enjoy doing it as long as my team and investors will have me.
Absolutely. It's interesting. You spent obviously extensive amount of time being an engineering leader. I guess you're going to develop mental models, framework, decision-making frameworks. You're going to learn those jobs really well. As you mentioned, you're going to pick up things along the way as a CEO because you have to, and you need to adapt to the wider breadth of exposure to different functions. Does the mental model change the decision-making framework? Because obviously what you're comfortable training on for 10, 15 years has shifted. What happens there?
I think it's the same mental model. Like, it's a mental. My mental model is one that is, like, deeply rooted in curiosity, and so I'm kind of anti playbook. Like, I want to be able to build on past experiences to help deliver value or to get to the answer faster. But there's a sort of, like, I did this for the last 5 years. I'm going to do it for the next 5 years. I'm going to do it the exact same way, whether you're an engineering leader, CTO, CEO, CMO. It doesn't actually matter. If you're not learning, and if you're not constantly sort of reevaluating the way that you're doing things, and you're encouraging your teams to do things, then you're kind of missing the point. I don't think you can constantly start over, of course. You've got to understand what's worked well and how the landscape is shifting around you. And maybe I'm sort of accidentally talking about AI right now, but I mean, it is something that, as engineering teams, we need to be thinking about. Everyone is trying to do more with less. And so how do we, imagine how do we take advantage of the workflows that we have worked well in the past, and bring to bear sort of more modern tools so that we can, in fact, go faster, and kind of do more with less. So yeah, my mental model is one that is based on, I'm someone that is curious, who doesn't think that they have all of the answers, and that I do my best work when I'm learning, when I'm being challenged, and I'm being forced to sort of think outside of the box. Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I'd love to tell you, like, well, I've got these 25 frameworks, and I'm going to open source them all, and if you do these things, you're going to be successful. It's like training a large language model. These are really good things to be able to rely on and think back on to deliver context, but the situation that is directly in front of you is, in all likelihood, different from the one that I was experiencing when I wrote that thing at that time.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, theoretically speaking, I think some people feel that past experience is very important, but I think past experience, when you carry it into something that's not similar, I think it degrades, it loses a lot of value. And I think all of a sudden your perspective of just, as you mentioned, you were a few seats away from the top position, different conversations. They don't come to you first about certain things. They go to the CEO, then they'd ask your opinion from a technical perspective, maybe. But now it is obviously all on your own shoulders. And just to maybe a question, because you mentioned AI, and I'm curious, because obviously you're still close to engineering, being a CEO that was technical. Is that is that an advantage for you as a CEO, executing and looking ahead and trying to identify those little shifts that you guys can take advantage of?
Yes. I mean, one of the ways that I remain curious is I try to keep my hands on the keyboard, and the team still lets me write a little bit of code. I don't open as many pull requests as I have in the past. I still enjoy doing code reviews, even though we have AI tools that are happy to do the code reviews for us, there's something there's a human connection that I don't want to lose. And like, why are we doing this thing? And why are we building it this way? Have we thought about that? It gives me a view into how my team is ultimately thinking about things. So, yeah, I mean, I think being technical gives me some amount of an advantage to some extent. Yeah, I take an awful lot of uh, pride in being empathetic. I'm largely building software and selling software to people, to roles that I have myself occupied. I know how hard it is. I know what challenges they're up against. And I think that being able to meet those people where they are and have a conversation of like, geez, I know what you're up against. And I think our approach is one that can help you out, and I can speak to it with like a high degree of confidence and technical proficiency is something that I don't want to lose sight of. And the landscape is changing really fast with AI and what it is actually able to do when you really get in there and understand it. And it is can be very shiny and impressive in the first 10 minutes. But I think where I'm trying to encourage people to dig a little bit deeper is to really look at where it is substantive. Like, where can it actually impact your business? Where can you really rely on this? So it's one thing if it can write 10,000 lines of code faster than I've ever been able to write 10,000 lines of code. But if that code is shit and doesn't work and misses the mark architecturally or from a product point of view, like, it's just a waste of time, and it's a waste of compute. And it's the same thing if we're using AI for any sort of decisioning or things that might accelerate the job I need to do as a chief executive officer. It's kind of the same thing. Like, I still want to be the one who is making the decisions, as opposed to just like, oh, I asked AI and it told me to do this thing, and I'm going to go and do that thing. That doesn't make sense either. And I think whether it's artificial intelligence or investors who are advisors who are giving you, telling you what to do, or pretending to tell you what to do in the form of giving you advice, it's ultimately you still the human that has to make those decisions. And we're lucky that we have more access to information and advice than ever before. And at the same time, it can be overwhelming. And so early on in my career, I was like, I would have this punch list of things, and I would look at how quickly I could get through that list or how quickly I could make those decisions. And now, a few years in, or decades in, because I'm kind of old, I've got these big decisions to make, and I'm going to take all of the information at hand, and I'm going to try to consider it. And maybe I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to let it marinate. I'm going to just sleep on it for a night, and then I'm going to come back and see how I feel about it. Because the decisions we make sometimes can be quite permanent. So it's, yes, things are shifting quickly, and we can do more faster than ever before, but I don't think we always should. And trying to strike that right balance is a daily challenge.
I love that. And I was gonna mention, obviously, and we'll link to it. So I know when you were at Glossier, you published.
Oh man, that was fun.
Yeah, and obviously, great trajectory there. I'm sure that there's a ton to unpack from that experience. But and people can go through and kind of maybe you can give us a little overview. But where I was going to go with that, because I'm now curious. I hadn't thought about the question, but if you were to kind of reflect on the traditional engineering ladder, and there's so much conversation now around where AI will start absorbing some of this work, right?
Yep.
Does that engineering ladder, I mean, not does it? How do you think
How
it's
does
going to
it change?
shift? Yeah, I don't think it's a does. It's going to. But the question
Yeah.
is how do you think that engineering ladder might start shifting? What would that even start looking like? And it's hard because it's happening real time. It's happening pretty quickly. And a lot of people want to have first mover, but then again, it's all a lot of experimentation as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a lot of fun writing that engineering ladder. I remember, and I read it sometimes. I read a lot of the things that I wrote 10 years ago, and sometimes like, oh, geez, like what was I thinking? But I was thinking what I was thinking, and it's nice to sort of have it kind of memorialized. But I remember at that moment, the engineering team was growing very quickly, and it was at a time when engineering promotions, people were giving them out like candy. And like, my friend was an engineer out of a boot camp, and then he became a senior engineer 6 months ago, and then she was promoted to engineering manager 18 months after that. I was like, well, holy moly, like how are folks getting these promotions? Are we doing the right thing? And if I'm not a manager, then I'm not actually moving forward in my career. So there's so many different things that I wanted to disambiguate with my team so that we were on the same page. And the reason that I open sourced it was I open sourced it first to my team. It's like, let's actually get everyone on the same page in terms of how we're evaluating the progression of an engineer at the company that we are all working on and in together. And everyone had a chance to contribute to it. So when you would sit down with your manager and you would go through that review, it wasn't just subjective, it could be objective. Like there's some things that we're measuring your progress against. And a lot of times in a startup, just keeping up with the growth of the company is in and of itself a promotion. So I don't always want to encourage people to go and chase title. How does that relate to let's bring it back to your question. How does the engineering ladder change with the arrival of Gen AI and how it can contribute to the velocity in which a single engineer or a lean team of engineers can deliver code to market? I don't know. I haven't rewritten it. And what I can tell you is that we still need engineers. And we need engineers with experience. And certainly in these early days of AI, I think engineers that have a certain amount of experience and that are still curious are the ones that are going to be the most advantaged by these tools because they can look at the code very quickly and be like, yep, that works. Or like, no, that is a hallucination that will be dangerous if it makes its way into production. So as I think about that ladder, and without contradicting what I just said about not having people accelerate from, junior engineer or engineering 1 to engineering 6 in 6 months, I do think that AI is going to have an impact on how fast you can get to the level of a senior engineer or a principal engineer or a staff engineer in terms of your output and your ability to impact those around you in a really positive way.
Mm-hmm.
But just getting there quickly is not the goal. Getting there completely needs to be the goal. And that's what I would encourage engineering managers, assuming we're still going to have them, because maybe they're going to be the most impacted here. But when you're growing the team around you, it's like, how are we encouraging people to be thoughtful about the way that we're using these tools so that we're still building products that resonate with the customers that we are selling them to? So I think we are going to still see relatively the same levels. I think we're going to see teams be leaner, maybe fewer managers, but you can't replace the importance of having hands-on experience and knowledge to be able to even interact with these tools, be like to give them the guidance, if you will, and to be able to really harvest the code that is ultimately being generated. Does that make sense?
It does, and honestly, I realize I don't think anyone's gotten there, and I think your views are actually they fit how I think of it as well. I actually I do talk to a lot of leaders, and the discussion I think is theoretical. I do find it interesting, and for the most part, I think what you just described, I think is a very likely beginning. I don't know where it goes. I do think that junior engineers are going to get faster, better. I don't know if we'll need as many. I mean, there's a lot of things in there.
Yeah.
And obviously, I know we were there. We came on to talk about the CTO to CEO role, which I think we did. So people are going to be like, "Hey, Amir, you didn't cover the topic at all." But I think this is a good vein of discussion because it does tie both your backgrounds. There is something that I do think about, and I think most CTOs get upset with me when I mention it, and so we don't get it to air ever. But I do mention if the notion of how we write software will change, because the amount of hours and time invested in generating applications and code is a lot. So we want to hold on to it. We want to accumulate tech debt. We don't want to throw something away. I've actually started thinking, what if code becomes really disposable, like a disposable camera? We're going to write it, and then if
Yeah.
Gen AI is good enough, we'll replace whatever we need because we just simply don't have to hold on to it as much, or we don't have to
Yeah.
worry about tech debt maybe.
Well, I mean, I think that's it, actually, tech debt.
Yeah.
the amount of sort of hanging hand wringing that happens at the sort of like between product and engineering in the business, which is like, wait, what percentage of this week's sprint do you want to dedicate to tech debt? Like that's delivering no enterprise value. And then the engineers are like, well, I can't make the progress you want me to make without us paying down that debt. I think that there's an interesting opportunity for AI and even agents to be able to go in and say like find the tech debt and suggest a PR for me that makes it better. I think that's actually quite interesting. Um, so I think we will start thinking about code as being more disposable. In fact, I've always encouraged my teams, as bad as I am at writing tests, I love writing tests, and AI has helped me out already tremendously here. But if we have good test coverage, we should be less precious about the actual implementation. And like we have to earn the right to say, I need to over engineer this piece. Like I want to see the application nearly break under the load of traffic that we are delivering to it before I'm going to go and allocate very precious resources to make it more robust. So if you think about this in terms of video game levels,
Hmm.
you got to earn the right to get to that level. And I think AI is going to help sort of change that conversation. And you know what, even talking about this too, what occurs to me is we're so focused on how fast we can get a product to market now with AI, and that's true. Like we can get there faster. Um, we had an engineer on our team shortly before they went on vacation stand up like a pretty complex API endpoint for a brand new part of our product in a single day. That would have taken a week before. And they wouldn't even have started it before going away on vacation because like I'm not just going to leave it here because then I'm going to have to pick it back up when I come back. But they were able to finish it in a day, get it to a partner so that partner could start testing against that API while they were out for a week. That's pretty cool. Like that's a big efficiency gain. But I'm just focused on getting the product to market. We're forgetting what it takes to maintain a product when it is in market. And I don't think we've really sort of scratched the surface yet on what AI can do. Like it is not your full DevOps team that is looking at observability and identifying those hotspots and security. Like those are things that we can bring AI to bear. But the more that we're shipping and building, the more opportunities we're creating for ourselves to think about the long-term maintainability and viability of these applications that are out there, and collecting feedback from customers and making sure that that's making its way into the roadmap and that we're building that next thing. Um, I don't think I'm not. I don't want us to fully be on autopilot. There's something great about meeting with your customers and hearing from them firsthand what they want, and then being able to go and put pen to paper or AI to IDE and ship that code.
I think that makes a lot of sense. It fits to how I kind of view things as well. And I think it's interesting because if we probably were to go back, you know, 40 years, 50 years, I'm sure when IDs were not available and people were still coding on
Ending.
in a
Still a
text
Vim
file.
power user.
Yeah, and just, running things and then debugging would take God knows how long to see what was going wrong. When the ID, I am sure there were people that had similar views of, well, why would I want to switch to that? I lose control.
Yeah.
I actually feel as humans, we love this illusion or idea of control. And I feel like AI is stripping that away. And I've had this conversation. People will message me online because of my content. And they'll be like, but if the AI makes a mistake, I go, okay. The humans
Yeah.
make as many, if
All
not
the
more,
time.
mistakes, but we can actually hold accountability of tracing back maybe where the mistake was with the AI. I can't tell what a human was thinking at the time, or they didn't sleep well because their life impacted them and they came in and they did something that I don't know all those things. AI won't do that. It might need other concerns, but I do find it interesting that people in this illusion of control,
Yeah.
there's going to be a bit of an evolution, but
There has to be.
yeah.
Like, I think the right way for us to coach people to think about that is you're still in control. So I think about these, if it's my IDE, it's an agent that's writing the code for me. I am managing that agent. So I might be an individual contributor, but in some cases I'm acting as an IC. I'm acting as an EM, meaning the agent that is writing the code for me. I'm ultimately the one that is hitting the merge button and pushing this into production. So if I made a mistake, guess what? Guess who made the mistake? Me. It's not AI. And so I'm not really giving up control. I'm shifting my responsibility maybe further upstream. But I think if we're if we're looking at it as like I'm giving up control, we're doing it wrong. I think what you need to think about is like we all need to be managers, but we're not managing humans as much as we're managing agents. And that's a mind shift. And it's going to take a minute. It's going to take a minute to get there. But if someone were to say to me like that control thing, I would invite them to think about it a different way. They're still in control because I want them to be accountable and responsible.
I 100%. You know what's interesting is I think I draw an analogy from cybersecurity and how Hollywood has glamorized what cybersecurity means, right? I mean, people here think about this clickety clack, people
Yeah.
trying to hack your password in 8 seconds and they happen to guess it. It's like
Yeah.
that's not how. And then I think with a lot of the movies that have come out about robots and AI, it's glamorized this view of the robots are going to be take the AI, they're going to then build themselves. We're slaves to the robot. I think there's a lot of glamorization that happens, and I don't know what'll happen 500 years from now. But there's a couple of steps that are going to have to go through before we actually have functional tech. And I think
Yeah.
people reference some of those Hollywood ideas, and I think that impacts this notion of control because there's a fear component of, well, you know, we see those Boston Dynamics robot, videos, and it's very impressive. Half the comments in there are like, "Well, here we go, it's iRobot. They're coming
Yeah.
for us. They're gonna." So it is an interesting conversation out there.
Yeah. I listen, at the end of the day, I've been in like technology since the mid 90s. An early adopter, an optimist for sure, but a realist too. I've seen an awful lot of these waves. This is a super exciting wave that feels very powerful, but I'm quite realistic about the role that humans need to play in being able to extract value from it. So yeah, it'd be great to revisit this a year from now or 2 years from now and see how right we were, or perhaps how wrong. And kind of go from there.
I'm with you. I will we'll definitely have to do that because I like doing those, and I think it'll be interesting to see how some of these things played out. Bryan, thanks for coming on. I think obviously great content, great viewpoints. If somebody wants to ask a follow up, maybe want to learn about Cord, how can somebody do that?
Yeah, great question. I'm quite good at email because I am as old as I said, so they can reach out to me. I'm Bryan at core.co. I'm pretty easy to find on LinkedIn as well. That is my social network. I'm quite bad at all of the other social networks, but I do love reaching out to folks that reach out to me, and I do my best to respond. Those are probably the two best ways.
Awesome. Definitely appreciate your time. Thanks for sharing with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. All right, that's it for this episode. Be back again, different guests, different topics. Until then, two things. One, we did cover the topic I mentioned, Bryan's journey from CTO CEO, some of the skills he needed. I do apologize. We did not dive into maybe the depth I was hoping for, but the conversation around AI, I think, was awesome. Bryan's views were fantastic. I think they resonated with me. And I think sometimes talking about some of those aspects of AI, and I think we talked about control and speed. We talked about tech debt, all those things that are going to get affected by AI. Workflows, Bryan mentioned overseeing workflows and processes is kind of where we are heading potentially. I think those are great to talk about because I think more people need to hear about them. So please share this episode with somebody else that might also benefit. We'll have Bryan on hopefully down the road to revisit this and dive into some more of his background as well. Also, like, subscribe, comment. Let me know how the show's going for you. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.